Well, here we are on the brink of another new week. It's a fine Monday, and all the snow that was here last time Pat and I met seems to have gone like snow off a ditch. Would that be right, Pat? Is that the case with you in Donegal?
Absolutely. Well, Jude, I think it was the east of the country. We're in the northwest here. We got very little in fairness. There was sort of coating of snow on Friday morning and disappeared very quickly. So we
Uh-huh.
didn't have a bad weekend at all. All that sort of scary, but that it was going to be like Arctic, the beast from the east and all the rest. It didn't
Mhm.
appear at all.
Aye.
Not for us, anyway.
But I guess it's going to come. They do say the temperature is going to drop seriously again during the week. Incidentally, the less
Aye,
you move, the less your mic will crackle. Just a small
that's
uh,
probably true.
word
But
of
can I run this? I just want to run this by to start off.
yeah.
Rishi Sunak's local electricity network has been upgraded to meet the power demand of his new swimming pool.
I saw that.
In other
I
words,
saw that. They said the good thing is he paid for it himself. Paid the bill himself.
when you the cost of living, the price of fuel, people struggling to pay bills, isn't it good that the Prime Minister, that the cost, the power needed for his swimming necessitated a power upgrade at the local power station?
Well, somebody said to me one time, you can hide poverty, but you can't hide being rich.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I
anyway,
just I just saw that on air.
yeah. Okay, now that you talk about that, I'll give you and our readers a tip. I know how you feel nothing but admiration for Sir Keir Starmer. I put up on Facebook a clip from not a program I've mentioned before or an online thing, not the Andrew Marr show. I've put one up, and
Yeah,
it's Alexei Sale talking about Keir Starmer. Just keep that in your mind, Pat.
yeah,
Have a look at it after, and anybody else.
yeah. I think I might have seen it.
Oh,
Yeah, he absolutely detests him.
oh,
Yeah,
I've always loved it, Alexei Sale. I think he's absolutely brilliant. Okay, let's get down
yeah,
to some more matters. I was going to say closer to home, but closer to our hearts. The Oscars, of course, are the thing that's been talked about
yeah.
for weeks now. And last night it all happened. Did you tune into it, Pat, to see it or live or?
No, I did not. Jude,
No.
I think a lot
Very
of people
wise.
about with. No, like you'd have to stay up there about 3 o'clock to watch it. So I've no intention of doing that. It's probably on tonight. But like half of Ireland, or at least the artistic community, went off to Los Angeles. Now, it wasn't a great night. Colin Farrell and the Banshees from I was going to say on a Sheeran, was up for a whole lot of things. What do you call him? The Paul Mescal was up for who else? The girl
And
for the
Colleen
best actress.
Coon.
What I can't Kerry Condon and all the rest of it, and Barry Keoghan. The only one was that film, which, by the way, I watched on RT. Was there no BBC? I think I watched it last night. An Irish sort of a goodbye. That
Aye.
film, was that the
Yeah.
right name of it?
I think an Irish goodbye. Yeah.
It's a lovely wee film.
I haven't seen it.
It's only 20 minutes.
Uh,
Yeah,
I'm sure it's very nice.
I think they put it on last night because there was no match of the day,
Yeah.
or very truncated
Well,
match
we'll
of the
come
day.
to that too. Yeah, I guess, and also, of course, the fact that the lead actor is, I think he's the lead actor, is suffers from not suffers endures. His life is lived with Down syndrome. Makes it somehow all the
Yeah,
more moving. I think. Do you think?
and he's very very good,
It's very funny, actually.
uh, he's absolutely excellent. And in fact, it's a disgrace that I don't know his name. Well, I don't
I
know the other
know.
guy's name either.
No, isn't
So
it
I'm
terrible?
not
Isn't it
being.
terrible? I say he's the guy that has Down syndrome. I can't come up with his
Yeah,
name.
but let's be honest, Jude. That's what and there's no insult or any smart
No,
intent,
far from
but
it.
that's how it goes. And the fact that there's a lot been made of the fact that he has Down syndrome,
Aye,
and the fact that and by the way, it's not in the least but patronizing to say he is one hell of a brilliant actor.
aye, that's right. And he hasn't certainly allowed any handicap or
Uh,
drawback to hold him back. He just barrels right
Absolutely.
on. So I thought that was very
Uh,
good. But I tell you the truth, Pat, I was a bit. disappointed that so many. I mean, I think it was the Banshee of Inisherin where it was nominated for something 9 awards and didn't get a single one.
Yeah,
Um, I think we're very good, the Irish, at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
but it was in for the best film. It was in for the best director. It was in for cinematography. It was in for screenplay. What else? Best supporting actor, best main actor, best supporting actress, and it didn't win any of them. But
Aye.
Jude, haven't said that. It's very rarely. It's usually an American film that wins. The exception to the rule, and the lobbying apparently. Jude, I know nothing about these things, but apparently the lobbying goes on behind the scenes in America. It's like winning a presidential election. It's almost bought on occasions.
Yeah, there's a lot of gifts handed out, I gather. But anyway, even apart from that, Pat, I sometimes have serious doubts about this whole idea of saying this piece of art, this film, is better than that film. It's like saying, I don't know what, like the Mona Lisa is better than, some other famous piece of art.
Yeah.
It's entirely a personal point of view. And it's, in a way, it's denigrating to the one that doesn't win. And in any case, year after year, when you look back on history, it's movies that weren't nominated or didn't win the award. Those are the ones that really stood the test of time. Whereas the ones that got it, nobody can remember what they were.
I don't think Casablanca won any awards. I'm not sure about what was no one going through my head just there, and yet they're the ones that are now considered classics. Yet a lot of the films that won Oscars have just disappeared. Like to use your term early on, snow off a rope. They're just gone. So the only one, Jude, I remember when I was quite a young fella. There was a lot of hoopla about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I just got married. Me and Rosie decided we'd go and see One Flew. And I've got to admit, that film not only lived up to all the sort of hoo-ha, it was far better. I remember sitting absolutely entranced by that film.
Jack Nicholson was at his very best then. I have to say, as the years have gone by, he's become something of a parody of himself. But then he was dynamite. I mean, his eyes alone, once he come on the screen, everybody else just faded. Did you notice the controversy about the response of Saturday Night Live to Irish entrance to the?
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to get around to that. Yeah, Jude, you see, my wife on yesterday morning, she says, "Hey, did you see this thing about taking the piss out of the Irish at the Saturday Night Live?" And I said, "Culture, what do you expect?" But I didn't realize it was as offensive as it was.
Well, what did they say exactly, Pat? What did they say? I didn't see it.
Wasn't what they said. They took the piss out of the accent, and then of course they went and they didn't even have it. And they said they didn't even have a drink yet. Jude, and you talk about, if you said that about a Jewish person or you said about a black person, you talk about offensive stereotyping. They're going to say, "Come on, have a wee bit of a laugh." Now, I'm not getting too over the top about it, but Jude, I think that the days, like many Irish people don't drink. Many Irish people drink the same as anybody else. The Australians and the Germans drink a hell of a lot more than the Irish, but you never hear that mentioned on. It's a nice sort of little cheap stereotype, and I think we've moved away a lot from that. And to keep harking back to, people maybe years, after the famine, so on, people drank a lot, and we still enjoy drink. That's part of our culture. What does they say? The Asians gamble and we drink. But Jude, we're not alone, and this sort of cheap stereotyping as a wee bit, it does piss me off a wee bit.
Yeah, I used to get. I actually still really don't care too much what they say. To be honest with you, I only worry when people that I respect and admire, when they start saying things about me, I get pissed off. This thing about, I mean, if people want to think of the Irish as an inferior race, well, be my guest, but in fact, you're totally wrong. I think that was my attitude for a long time. Nowadays, I'm just, maybe I was being a wee bit too open to insult. Why? Like, are you saying to some other race? If that happened with blacks or browns or Americans or English, people would be they mightn't get enraged, but they wouldn't like it.
No, no, Jude, you know something, I tend to agree with you. You know, this sort of, a lot of this stuff now, and I'm not going back to this thing, but no, this sort of woke that everybody takes offense at it. Jude,
Yeah.
no, half the time the old comedians that I used to enjoy, half of them used to make anti-Irish jokes, but
Hmm.
half the time they'd make jokes about other things as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not going to turn around and say I found everything offensive and I didn't laugh. And
Hmm.
I was watching Benny Hill on the other night, and before the thing came on, uh,
Yeah.
there was a sort of a sort of broadcast warning. This comedy reflects the views of the time. And I was going, you pretentious share of bollocks, is to put that sort of,
Well, I
as
find
if.
Benny, I find it difficult to enjoy Benny Hill because he was too subtle for me.
Yeah, it wasn't subtle at all. But it's like Blackpool humor. It's,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
need to warn people. Give them a
that's right. I
break.
agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, it's just right in your face, and that's the way it is. Anyway, I don't tend to,
Mm.
by and large, worry too much about people mocking theirs. I think it tells me something about them. It just shows me that they're
Yeah,
stupid, ignorant people, and what can you do with stupid, ignorant people, really?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so that the Irish contingent are now making their way back, I guess, from Los Angeles, and meanwhile,
yeah.
the Irish contingent in Ireland are packing their bags to get over there to DC for Washington DC for Paddy's Day,
Yes,
and
and
among
the
them will
based
be
on
Sir
the
Jeffrey
whole.
Donaldson.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, 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 and a whole host of others.
Yeah,
Well, it's apparently it's very much Team Donaldson. Yeah, what is it? Is it Carla Lockhart and some others? I can't remember. There's two or three others. But I one time I was working when I was working in the Dairy Journal. On a Thursday night we had a very big paper on a Friday. So sometimes I could be working till 11 or 12 o'clock at night, be getting the paper to the printers and so on. And I remember one night I came home, and it must have been around March. And I was, the way you're so tired, but you can't sleep because you're going through your head. Did I
yeah, yeah.
check that headline? Did I do this? Did I do that? Right. I put on CNN because there was nothing else on. And God bless him, but who was being interviewed by Larry? I can't remember his name now. Famous Larry King Live. That's what
Yeah.
it was. David Trimble, and the David Trimble being interviewed by Larry King Live was not the David Trimble that was interviewed on Talkback or UTV. Or he was courteous and charm itself, and that's not how he talks over here. He was, and he was gracious, and he was very. No, the Catholic people in Northern Ireland are entitled to their place in them, and everything was generosity, generosity, generosity. And I'm going, Jesus, why don't you see that when you're over here?
Well, it's
And that
like
was about 2 o'clock in the morning.
is it like washing your face whenever you're going visiting?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He had on his good suit and his best manners. That choleric way he used to sometimes react.
Oh,
Remember, he walked out of an interview with ITV because the introduced wasn't Martin McGuinness or something.
aye. Well, he is what my mother would have called he was a highly strong man. I don't mean by
Uh,
that he was
yeah,
hanged, but
he wasn't
he
he
was
wasn't
highly strong.
spunky
He was
enough.
nervy.
Yeah, my
Um,
mother used to use that there. He was highly strung. Yeah,
but
yeah. They got a
the
rope.
thing is, I think poor old Jeffrey, in a way, to going to Washington, he's damned if he didn't, and he's damned if he did. If he didn't go, it would seem
Mm.
very churlish because obviously the
Yeah,
welcome has always been for both sides of the house, unionists as much
yeah,
as nationalists. Uh,
yeah.
he's agreed to go, but he's going to get his ear bent. He definitely is going to get his ear
Yeah, and
bent.
the other thing as well, now, I didn't pay a lot of attention. There was a Belfast Telegraph, I think, was it on Saturday, as at 73% of DUP voters or something don't accept this new deal. But I think when you work on all of unionists, it's below around 50% or below 50%. So now, Jude, if you have all the nationalists, the Alliance, and everybody else, and only 50% of a minority voting against, going to be very interesting how Jeffrey and all, if they turn this down. And by the way, and we referred to this on Friday, but Sunak had a bromance with Macron on Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
and they have agreed to spend millions on this sort of double deal that they're going to look after, the boat people coming across the channel. And it's very very obvious that the Brits want a reset of relationships with the EU. And now,
Yeah.
if Jeffrey and all that puts the balloon under that. I would love to know where unionism goes, but it's a question we've asked before. But anyway, I'm just throwing it in there on the view of the fact that they're all heading out to America, and I'm sure they'll be putting their best foot forward.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that he can do anything but try to be as gracious as he can. The fact of the matter is that the argument he will put forward really doesn't stand up. You know, it works with his
No, it
followers,
doesn't.
but it doesn't work with anybody else because it doesn't make
Well,
sense.
that's not because Jude, there's no logic to it. If that what the unionists and the people of Northern Ireland in general are being offered is probably the best deal, if anywhere. Even the Republic of Ireland won't have free access to Britain, the fifth biggest market in the world. The only people who will have free access to both Europe and to the UK are the people of Northern Ireland. That's a good deal, no matter what way you come at it.
I mean, Richie Sunak was right. I know it was ironic because he could have had the whole lot, but he was dead right. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, they should be getting out of their starting blocks like lightning when they have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because there's also the state of the economy and the state of society generally in the North is very bad at present. So here we have it. Sitting on a plate.
But there's 2 points worth making. The EU have said there's, and I'll leave it to other people to contradict it, that there's now only 3% of EU law remaining. So there's 97% gone. And the second thing, which is still the main thing, is that until the day and hour that you and me and various others like us can vote on the Good Friday Agreement, then 51% vote to join the Irish Republic. The constitutional position of Northern Ireland is unchanged. So that's absolute bollocks that it's this changes the constitutional position. The only thing about it is trade laws have been changed because of necessity.
But at the same time, Pat, wouldn't you love to be not a fly on the wall? Wouldn't you love to be a guest quietly standing behind Jeffrey whenever he meets Rishi Neal or Joe Biden or these people?
Joe Biden.
Have a drink, Jeffrey. Have a drink there. No, listen to me.
Have an order bitter lemon.
Okay, speaking of bitter lemons, it looks like this clash between the BBC and Gary Lineker is over. Incidentally, let me sort of do a personal thing again. I was listening to Talkback and William Crawley, and they were talking about how important it was for the presenters on Talkback and on any other program in the BBC to be neutral. So that was the thing he was using, essentially, that, as an employee of the BBC, you had to take on certain responsibilities. You weren't allowed to be speaking out and stuff, even you felt strongly. Yeah. But he said it's a totally different matter for somebody who comes in and talks, as a guest or as a pundit. They're free to say whatever they want. So I said a tweet about that, and I said, surely you jest, Mr. Crawley. Surely you jest. I actually think there's a serious foundation stone missing from this talk about being neutral and how Gary Lineker overstepped the boundaries of neutral. The fact of the matter is, and we know, you must know this, Pat, that the BBC is not neutral. It is a British broadcasting corporation. Nobody will tell me the BBC was neutral during the Falklands episode or during the Troubles generally, to take two big things. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. Jude, the evidence on both is overwhelming. They are not impartial. Jude, the coverage, believe it or not, Jude, I did a master's degree, and one of the theses I did was the whole coverage of the Northern Ireland, broadcast coverage in particular. And Jude, when you go through the evidence and you read the books and all the, Jude, there was a woman called Liz Curtis. And
I remember her. Yeah.
The propaganda war. And Jude, the things that were actually broadcast, and then she did a sort of forensic follow-up on what actually happened. And Jude, the broadcast reports bore no resemblance to what actually happened on many, many occasions. If the British Army looked bad, it was downplayed. If the IRA looked bad, it was upplayed. And I actually think, even like things like, I remember the McGurk Spar, it was originally said it was done by, it was a known goal by the IRA. And so it was all part, and they knew damn well it wasn't done by the IRA, and so on. all that sort of stuff, Jude. Anyway, that's but to stick to today's point, Jude, the idea that the BBC is impartial, Jude, that is a sort of actually an insult to your intelligence. But Jude, let's get into this thing. The chairman of the BBC, Richard Sharp, just so people, I'm sure most people at this stage are aware of it, but he made a £400,000 donation to the Tory party and arranged, facilitated, they say, an £800,000 loan for our friend Boris Johnson. The Director General, Tim Davie, is a former local government candidate for the Tory party. Sir Robbie, I think it's Robbie Gibb, was the Director of Communications for Theresa May. He's on the board. Now, I have long questioned the sort of impartiality of Laura Kuenssberg, because I don't believe she'll argue it, and she's got the backing of the BBC. But I see her views; they don't match with mine. I see her totally supporting and very sort of amicable when it comes to Tory party people. I've also question time is a total setup. It reflects the views very much of the establishment. You don't see somebody from the poor backstreets. It's always the chairman of Tesco's or the editor of the Daily Mail or the Daily Telegraph. None of
But they do say, Pat, they do say in question time, they claim that the audience is a cross section of views from society.
Absolute Pat+Jude. That is, I don't buy that for a second. You can see plant like there's been a number of occasions in the past where people said this guy who said he's was actually, there's one guy, what do you call that, Jude? 0 hours. Yeah. There's a guy come on and said, I'm a student and I think 0 hours is a great thing. I totally support the Tory party. About 2 days later, he was exposed as a member of the Tory party. So how clearly are they vetted?
Yeah. Well, I would emphasize the fact that the British Broadcasting Corporation is a part of the British establishment, and you just accept that. That's the way it is. So don't kid yourself that it's only in big things like this clash with Gary Lineker. It operates in all sorts of smaller ways that you wouldn't even notice. And in some ways, I believe that's more insidious and powerful than is the frontal sort of assault that you have on Gary Lineker. In any case, we've talked about Gary Lineker before, but they really seem to have scored a massive own goal because Lineker, they essentially said, okay, Lineker, you're okay, come back, and you can sort of tweet whatever you want. Isn't that true? That they have to more or less free to tweet as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, but here's the point. They only seem to take this attitude when it was Gary Lineker. Totally ignored Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar made some seriously offensive tweets about Jeremy Corbyn. He described Sir Keir Starmer as weird, and he told people not to vote Labour. Andrew Neil, as the chairman of the Spectator, he was a rabid Tory and support of Thatcher, and yet he's allowed to broadcast. Now, he's a superb broadcaster, and I think he's a very good interviewer, but he doesn't hide his views at all. And I could keep going. There are others, and look at Jeremy Clarkson. He sneered and smeared anybody who was left-wing during his glory days as a presenter of Top Gear and got away without as much because he was a freelancer. He wasn't, and so on. So Gary Lineker makes a comment, which, by the way, Jude, has the dial in Britain gone so far to the right that to express almost a decent human being, he's saying these people, he was in support of people coming across channels and small boats that on a human rights level. Like, is that now considered left wing human decency?
Yeah. Well, he jumped onto the ban. The son was damning himself because he introduced 1930s Germany. But I think that it's to do with. I'd be more interested in how it affects us here, because if you take something again, it's not a major car crash, but if you take how often do you hear a frankly Republican voice on Radio Ulster, as distinct from how often do you hear a frankly Unionist voice on Radio Ulster? I mean, there is no contest whatsoever, and yet we somehow accept that as being normal. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Yeah. The same thing applies, incidentally. The same thing applies to the Irish Times. The Irish Times will be far, far more likely to have an article critical of Sinn Féin than it will be. I remember a guy who rang me up one time. He was a reporter, well, he was more than a reporter. I think he was a columnist for maybe it was Irish Examiner, or yeah, I think it was Irish Examiner. And he said, "Oh God, he couldn't." Says, "You, are you saying that we don't present a fair picture of what's happening in the north and give a fair crack of the whip to every party?" I says, "You're bloody right, I do. That's exactly what I'm saying."
Yeah.
But we accept these things as being normal. I think that's a terrible danger, where you have things, it's going on for so long and so subtly that you begin to see, oh yeah, they're right when they say black is white. Dead right, of course, black is white.
But we and you, myself and yourself have raised this one. Like, Nolan regularly has unelected far-right loyalism spokespeople on his programs, and they get great coverage, etc., etc. And they also have an elected guy, Jim Allister of the TUV, who's the single elected person in his party. Yet you would swear, if you're listening to Nolan, how often he's been on, that he is a major party and a major player. Now, do a contrast that. Just imagine for a second there was 3 unelected hardline Republicans on regular basis on Nolan and on Talkback, saying, no, it's a United Ireland or nothing, and trouble in the streets, and if we don't get our way, there'll be trouble, there'll be a hot and heavy summer, and all this sort of implied threat. The establishment would be going ape. But it doesn't happen. And yet
how is it that they get...
are supposed to sit back and say, oh, it's okay?
I mean, how is it? How did they get away with that? I mean, you and I are now saying this is sort of outrageous. This constant presence of strong unionist views, which people are entitled to have, incidentally, absolutely entitled to have, and they should be represented on the airwaves. But the other opposite side of the argument is rarely heard. In fact, if ever heard. Now, why is it that we can see this, anybody can see this, and yet it continues? Why is it that we're afraid, or are we too shy, or are we afraid we'd be branded as being rebels or something?
Yeah, I don't know. But I would love to know if if Gary Lineker is considered partisan. I would love to know by what metric is Nolan's show considered middle of the road.
Well, you see, there again, there's a danger, because just as Jim Allister is a very sort of eloquent or logical brain, and can present an argument very, very well. And actually, I'd say the same thing for Jimmy Bryson. But the point is, it's not a question of whether they should be allowed to say it. It is should they be allowed to say it again and again and again, to the exclusion of all contrary views? That's the problem. Not the fact that they're stupid or anything. I think they're quite smart, and they're taking the opportunities being offered to them. And it comes back to who does it? The British Broadcasting Corporation, or the Irish Times, for that matter.
Here's a question. Here's let's get to the nub of this. Who won? Was the score draw? Did Gary Lineker win, or did the BBC win?
I think Gary Lineker put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, he has to have won, because he's reinstated. The other thing is this, Pat. He came out when Gary Lineker was taken off the show. Ian Wright, Alan.
Yeah, that was a catalyst.
Yeah,
Alan Shearer.
The rest of them, they came out behind him, and as a result, they just had to. The will of the people was there, and things weren't going to work, so they as gracefully as possible conceded defeat. Now, here's the thing. Remember Joe Brawley was kicked off RTE?
Yes.
Did anybody step off alongside him? Did any of his colleagues say, well, if you're not taking Joe, you're not getting me? Now, Joe was dropped with the same suddenness that Gary Lineker was. So these guys automatically swung in behind him. Did anybody swing in behind Joe Brawley?
Joe Brawley? No. In fact, Joe had a great tweet yesterday. He said, Gary Lineker stepped back from the match of the day in the same way I stepped back from the Sunday game. In other words, he was suspended from it. But here's the point, Jude. You brought it up. I think the catalyst here, big time for the support for Gary Lineker, was Ian Wright coming out right away and saying, I am not going on that show.
Mm.
Shearer followed. And then anybody that would have gone on that show would have been considered a scab.
Mm.
So the tenor, tone, everything changed almost instantly. Now, Jude, I wonder had Ian Wright kept his finger off the tweet button and said nothing, and Ian Shearer said nothing, I wonder would it have had the same impact?
Well, my question is, why wasn't there at least some voices or some people who were similar pundits to Joe Brawley drawing back and saying, okay, well, if you're going to throw Joe off just like that without explanation, I'm not going to be on there either. Why didn't that Kerry guy that was sort of his sparring mate,
Pat Spillane,
did he offer to step back?
Not at all.
Well, you see, what is it? And nobody else did either. Is it? Are we some kind of I don't know, sort of covert capitalist? You know, look after number one. Don't be risking your neck for the other guy. And yet, as you say, Ian Wright and others, automatically, there's no question about it. They just walked out and that was it. I tell you the truth, Pat, I feel ashamed, slightly ashamed.
Of what?
I'm ashamed that there wasn't more Irish people or other pundits from RTE who should have stood by Joe Brawley. They just tossed him out. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Joe Brawley, in my opinion, is a better pundit than Gary Lineker. I find Gary a nice guy, but he's a vanilla. He's vanilla, so he is. You know, you couldn't fight with him. But Joe Brawley's spiky and exciting.
Exactly. Well, Joe is a very, very good writer. There was a guy called Gary, what do you call him, or Lacey. He played for Donegal, and he had been away in Australia somewhere, and he had come back with a tan. And Joe had a great opening line. He came out as if he belonged to the Oriel ad, because I'm worth it. You know, it was a lovely line about the fact that he was coming out like a model.
Yeah.
But you know, but Jude, can I throw something at you you're not going to like? I think Joe was treated differently because he's a spiky northerner with a spiky northerner's view that has never quite embraced the sort of middle of the road southerners.
You could, well, I hate to have to admit that probably is true. Mary McAleese essentially had some similar views at one time about the way that she was treated when she was working for the RT.
Yeah, and remember Owen Harris, when she became president, he wrote an article that was actually bordering on, well, I don't know if it was racist, but certainly sectarian. He implied that she was a troublemaking northerner.
Is that the Owen Harris that predicted that Sinn Féin would lose the remainder of their seats in the south and they'd just become an isolated party in the north, and as a result lost £1,000 in a bet?
Yeah, so the one that to a certain pundit who might be looking at me as we speak. Yeah, that's the same boy. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I'm serious now. Just for one moment, I do feel when I looked at those two situations, and they're so similar, Joe Brawley and Gary Lineker, I felt ashamed. You know, the British didn't hesitate for a moment. They went right out there, and here are we, you know. In fact, it wouldn't have crossed anybody. It doesn't seem to have crossed anybody's mind. Nobody wrote about it to say why didn't they stand beside him, or you know. At least
but Jude, let me also. You're missing one other point. Remember, he went on the Claire Burns show, and he started talking about the attitude of the DUP. He was shut up, and basically, his line was cut in the same way I think Matthew's O'Toole was cut by Nolan the other couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
And I think Joe took that very seriously. And in fact, I think he suggested, and I don't know whether he did or not, that at one stage he was talking about possibly pursuing a legal, because it was totally unfair. And the implication was he was saying something that wasn't true when it was.
Yeah. Well, we've done our best now to try to let people see the light. You and I have shone twin torches into the darkness and the dastardly deeds that people are at. What would you say? Have we done a good job? Have we made many converts today?
Let's praise ourselves, because who else is going to do it?
Okay, Pat. Thank you very much.
All the best. Jim.
Enjoy your week. Enjoy your week.
Thank you. Bye. And you see you Friday.
Right. See ya.